We've just completed the installation of a Tomcat instance with a CA and K array configured within the same instance. To check that it's working correctly, we're going to request encryption and identity certificates for a user, escrowing the encryption keys in the DRM. The first thing we want to do is to check the status of our instances using PKI daemon. PKI daemon status tomcat gives the status of all dogtag tomcat instances on the server. So in this particular case, you can see the URLs that are required to access the server, both for the CA and for the DRM. We want to import the CA certificate and the admin cert into our browser so that we can authenticate to the agent interfaces of the CA and the DRM. To do that, we have to first go to the EE port. Okay, and we're going to add an exception the first time around. Okay, and you can see this is the EE port for the CA, and there are 3 tabs. There's an enrollment renewal tab in which you have various types of enrollments that are available for the user to do for different certificates. There's a revocation page where the user can revoke their own certificates after having provided the actual certificate itself. And finally, there is the retrieval page where we can retrieve certain things such as checking the certificate's request status, listing certificates, searching for certificates, and in this particular case, importing the CA certificate chain. So we'll go ahead and do that and trust it, and now the CA certificate chain is installed within our browser. The next thing we want to do is import the admin certificates, which is by default inside the home directory under .dogtag. We'll go ahead and, but because I'm not logged onto my machine as root, I need to move that to a central location. So the first thing I'm going to do here is copy the P12 file to a location where the user that I'm logged in and as will be able to reach it. And let's make sure that I can read it. And now I'm going to go into my browser and determine right, so here's my browser. Click on Advanced Encryption, View Certificates, and I'm going to import my certificate from /temp. By default, unless you specified differently, the PK12 password is the same password as that of your admin user. So now that the admin user certificate is imported, we can go ahead, and the first thing we want to do is create a user certificate enrollment. So in this particular case, I'm going to do a manual user signing and encryption certificate enrollment. So here I am going to be requesting 2 certificates, a separate certificate, one for encryption, one for signing, and after I click submit on this particular page, 2 keys will be generated, and these 2 keys will be generated in my browser, and then the public part of those keys, public keys, will be sent off to the CA to be turned into a certificate. The encryption, for the encryption key, the private key will also be sent over to the CA, but it will be wrapped in the DRM transport cert so that it's transported to the DRM. So let's put in a couple of things here. Okay, so now when I click submit, I see that there's a pop-up that shows up and says that the certificate authority is asked to make a backup of my encryption private key. In order to do this, I need to make sure that it's going to be wrapped with the DRM transport key, and if I want to, I can actually view the details of that certificate. But I'm going to click OK, and then the request has now been sent on. Now, the next thing I need to do is I need to approve that request. So I'm going to go to the CA agent port. I'm going to open that link, and because it's the agent port, at this point I am prompted for authentication as an agent, which I have over here. This is the admin cert that I previously just imported. Okay, and you can now see what requests. There are 2 requests that have been generated, and so I'm going to take each of those requests. I can see the details of the request, the CRMF, everything about it, the various fields, and in this particular case I'm going to approve the request. Okay, that I believe was the identity cert, and this is the encryption cert. Now if I go back to my identity page and I take a look over here, I can see that there is a certificate that has been issued, and if I want to, I can then import the certificate into my browser, or otherwise. Same thing for the encryption cert over here. On this side, the next thing we want to do is we want to confirm that the key, the private key, was actually stored in the DRM by the mechanism which we discussed beforehand. And so we're going to go ahead and go to the DRM and go to the agent port. Okay, and in this particular case, we use the same user. The credentials were cached to do client authentication to go to this particular interface, and we can see, sure enough, there is a key that was stored, a public key that was stored, and a private key and the public key that was stored for this particular user. And so we know that the archival was successful. There are mechanisms as well to recover that private key, and that private key will be recovered to a PK12 file, which ultimately could then be returned to the user.